we can have. You guys are really not blood sportsy tonight, huh? It's fine though. That's fine.
We're
It's
getting
good that we're
along.
Wait,
chilling.
what's there to
Just
fight
here
about?
for
We
the
agreed about the dick sucking vampires. You know, the other topic was fine. Like, give us a topic to get,
I actually
spicy
disagree
about.
on that topic. I think we should raise different people like differently. Like emphasize on
Really?
different. Yeah, I think we should. I think we should emphasize if somebody is more at risk, right? If you are a smaller stature, you're going to be more at risk. Like if you go and do things, and I'm not victim blaming, right? But if you will be more at risk. You will be, right? You should be aware of that. Like if you were smaller, you should look around. If you're a certain, if you're presenting as a certain gender, then yes, you should be more aware of your surroundings. I think it's incredibly important in this day and age that we prepare people to be successful and we prepare them to not be in situations where they're going to get hurt. That's my opinion, but.
We could tell everyone that, couldn't we? Like smaller
Yeah.
people or like women
Yeah.
are more at risk for
I think-
being yoinked.
Yeah, I do think that it's very important. I think, like Vaush said, it is the idea of who has the who becomes the.
I get what you
subject.
guys are saying, right?
I
But
think
there
it's like
should
a
be
case-to-case
more.
basis, not
there
like a
should-
gender thing.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but there should be more emphasis anyways, right? There is going to be. Like, if you have children of a different ethnic background, you may, like you were saying before, Vaush, right, about having the talk about police with them, right? You are going to put more emphasis on that with them than you would if you had children that were not like that. Right. Whereas
Yeah,
it like
my
same
parents-
thing with women, right? If you have women around, right, you're probably going to put more emphasis on, hey, don't leave your drink alone, or like, hey, be very aware of your surroundings because people will try to take advantage of you, right? And
But
that
fuck
is
the
raising
MS.
somebody different. That is raising somebody different. If you're putting more
But it's
emphasis on these
contextual
things.
and not entirely based on gender, right? Like it's so much broader than just being like blah blah.
Yeah, your
right?
first example
it's
was like if you're
entirely
small.
Well, yes, but like again, like if you are of a certain sex, you are more likely to be of a smaller stature, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, but like men of smaller stature are probably still going to be like okay in a lot of the context that you need to like educate people about, right?
I
A
would-
small man walking down the street in the middle of the night is going to fare much better than a small
Yes.
woman walking down the street in the middle
Yeah.
of the night.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I
yeah.
still think like I would have
Or
if I had like a
presenting,
boy,
sorry.
Well,
I would
I
still
should.
like be wary.
I want to Google how many kidnapping attempts there have been on Peter Dinklage for research purposes.
I honestly do think that we should like I get what you guys are saying and yes we should teach everybody these things but you like at the end of the day when I think about it and I think about somebody younger than me and like a woman younger than me I would still put so much more emphasis on certain things than I would if I were talking to a man who's younger than me, right? Like
I absolutely agree.
yeah.
Yeah, more
So,
emphasis is.
I would 100%
is fair.
I would 100% treat them differently just in the things that I teach them, right? We live in this reality. We don't live in a world where things are equal yet, where people are walking down the street and face the same amount of risk, right? We just don't. So, yeah, that's
Can
my
I-
opinion. Yeah.
Can I ask, like, obviously we only have one actual parent here, so I want to know how, like, were you raised like different, like if you had a sibling of like a different gender, were you raised differently, or do you think your parents tried to put emphasis on like certain things that you should be doing because of your gender? Like, did you feel that growing up? Just
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that definitely there was a difference in upbringing in terms of, I think, the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? Like, I think that as a dude, it was not as much onus was put on me as probably my sister in terms of like safety and that sort of thing, you know? So yeah, I think there definitely was a difference there. I think it's true as well. I think you're kind of right, Stardust. Like, it's very nice to think that you can just raise kids in a totally gender neutral manner and treat them the same. But there are material realities that exist in the world that you have to contend with. And yeah, I
As a
think that you've
woman,
got to take that into
people
account.
are going to try and take advantage of you, like more than they would as a man. That's just how it is, and how people are socialized as well plays into this, right? Where men are socialized differently, and depending on how they're socialized, they might not view you as an equal, and that will probably increase the risk of them trying to take advantage of you, trying to strong arm you into something, right? So I don't think it's a realistic. I don't think it's realistic to say that we should be like, oh, I would totally raise my kids gender neutral, and not treat them differently. I would not in a million years. I wouldn't.
Well, like I
In
say,
an
I
ideal
think
society, you would, just the way it is now,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Because of the
I-
reality of the world, you can't really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sort of mentality is born out of let's be honest, it does come more from like the left, so to speak. And I think that it speaks to the fact that there is a blind spot when it comes to kids on the left. Often, if you listen
Yes.
to discourse,
Yes, 100%.
there's not even a conception. There's not even a conception of kids. Like for example, some of the discourse around like money and stuff like that. It's like, oh, someone would be absolutely fine on X amount of money, and it's like, yeah, if you're single, but if you got kids, even like 100k or 70k or whatever it is, whatever figure you want to come to, isn't necessarily going to go very far if you've got 2, 3, 4 kids. And that's just one example of many.
I think
I think it's
sometimes
really-
it's very hard for young people to like step out of their own perception of like the world, and especially if
definitely.
you've spent a lot of time online, the way things seem online is entirely different to how they function
Yes.
IRL, because
Yeah.
yeah.
Boomers.
One of the things that I do find really irritating, that Chud Logic you brought up, is that there is this blind spot with like whether that's liberals or left-leaning liberals or like the left, right? Where like these things surrounding, it seems like this perspective of like raising a family or of like having kids, right, is not really focused on as much, right? And it's like it's almost, yeah, like you said, there's like a blindness to it. It's a little bit like it just feels irritating to me,
I think it
So,
comes from a good place,
yeah.
but it is just not grounded in reality, unfortunately.
Wait, what are we talking about right now?
It comes from an ideological place, right?
Right.
Where in a world where we wish it was already the way that we think it should be.
Wait, I feel like 6 people just made a point, and I never heard what point they were arguing against. What are we talking about? What
I
position?
don't know that we're really arguing against something so much that we are just like observing what we've seen on certain like in the left or in the left-leaning space, right? So
But
We're
what is
talking
it?
about progressive parenting, right? Progressive parenting, where it is less focused on like gender societal norms or whatever, where a lot of leftist parents are raising in gender neutral. You can't ignore the fact that you still have to teach people who present a certain way from a certain perspective, right?
Well-
Because if you don't, then you're not seeing the historical reality or like society as it is even right now.
Yeah, I recognize that. I just don't know if anyone was arguing. We weren't talking about raising kids to be gender neutral. Just should we
Yeah.
raise them like the same
Oh
way?
no, I don't think anyone's arguing here. I think we all kind of agree. But I'm
Yeah.
just complaining about terming online Twitter leftoids. It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
hobbies.
Oh, they're all the leftoids here are like 14. I think like the number of kids that are being raised gender neutral and like are not being taught anything about the expectations and associations of their, I guess, birth sex, have got to be an overwhelming minority. I mean, we're probably talking
yeah.
about like maybe 1 in every 100,000 children raised in this country, and even that might honestly be an overstatement. So
Would you
yeah,
argue
I
that
mean,
kid is,
I
like,
still
at a
think the
different-
language around it is still important, though, right? Like the fact is, like when we look at like we all interact with this space, right? And the majority of this space, has this narrative about it, has this narrative about raising kids that's so detached from reality. Yeah, I don't know. That's
You
just
think?
I would just say it's
I
a
just
lot
don't see
harder
it
than
that
anybody thinks it is, right?
Yeah.
Raising kids
True.
is so much harder. Like it was a blessing and a curse
terrifying.
that I
and
got
let's
to see it.
say let's say you
No,
raise
thank you.
these kids with the same expectations, they still have the surrounding society on them that will impart right? Whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
But if a kid was getting raised
don't we-
gender neutral, would they be at like a detriment, do you think? Like entirely?
I don't know. I never really
Why?
thought about it. Well, when you say when a kid is being raised gender neutral, do you mean like with gender neutral expectations, or they themselves are gender neutral?
I'm more asking because I don't know the answer. I'm more asking in terms of like what Vaush was saying. So like in terms of like Twitter lefties, maybe 1 in 100 kids or something.
Yes, because they're not being socialized to understand how the real world functions, and as a result, their parents are basically parenting them to live in this crazy candy land of idealism, and
Your
everyone's
parents are
equal
raising them
and
to live on Twitter.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't-
It
I really-
it
Are
sounds
we-
nice.
are we
it really
sure
does,
we're not
but it's-
getting-
It's not real.
It
Like
doesn't
angry
mean-
at a few Twitter posts here. I just
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
know
think
if I've,
it's
I've
a
seen
few
it.
Listen,
Twitter
Vaush,
posts.
listen.
It's like
All right, listen. I am getting angry at Twitter posts, okay? Because I fucking enjoy it. So I just want to be mad at leftoids, okay?
But it's not
I
a
just,
few.
I'm just wondering. Look, okay, how about let's try to bring this back to reality with my opinion, okay? Which is very real. What about this? Okay, here's how I imagine. Like I'm not a parent, but like I imagine that if I had a kid, I'd probably be like, let's say it's male, right? Like the kid's born, they're male. I'd be like, when they're old enough to talk about anything, you know, I'd be like, yeah, you know, we've been saying he and we've been saying you're a boy because that's just kind of the group people expect you to be in, but it's not really that big of a deal, you know, like whatever. I don't care. I'll just go and buy this because a lot of other people will assume it, and I feel like the goal would be to establish the social expectation while also indicating the arbitrariety of that position. I probably wouldn't give it to them in a 30-second spiel, but something like that, right? And then if like later on, if they have any like sort of problems or gender concerns, I think you've laid a pretty good groundwork for their feelings on that, you know?
Can
Oh,
you
does that
even
seem-
raise a kid gender neutral? Like, can you even? Is that even possible?
You can
Like, you buy
try.
them all
We used
white
to do it.
clothes or something? Like,
No,
they
it's
get
not so
plain
much about
sheets and
clothes.
stuff.
I feel like it would be like what they gravitate towards. Like if I had
Yeah.
a boy
Yeah.
and they're like, you know what, I want a Barbie instead of a fucking I don't know, like a car toy or something. I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever, get
Which
whatever
is
you want.
super common.
Most-
like, it
we-
is
we-
so common.
That was the norm for hundreds of years in European society and in America too. Do you know that?
I didn't know.
Kids
Yeah,
are only
you can
gonna
go
wear
back just
Dutch
100 years
clogs,
ago.
Okay.
Young children, like 4 or younger, were all called girls. That's what the term for them
Yeah.
was. Didn't matter what bits they had or anything. They were all called girls. And when they got older and more differentiated sexually, they were referred to as boys or ladies. The term girl was a ubiquitous term, gender neutral for kids. You can go back and find pictures of Roosevelt as a little baby. He was in a dress. They put all of them in dresses. Why not?
They
They're just
also-
babies.
Cute little white things.
It's also very common to for the even older generations that are still like alive today, they would just refer to babies as like it, because
yeah.
they didn't have like defining, you know, gender characteristics. They'd just be like it, and it wasn't like a rude thing. You're like,
I guess
Also,
using
pink
its
was
pronouns
the
really is
masculine
valid.
color, like pink and
Yeah,
blue
the
as like
ages.
gender colors, like pink for girls, blue for boys, or whatever. They were like opposite way back when. It was pink for boys. Pink was the color that they were all dressed in, which is kind of like wild how that has shifted over time as well.
Yeah. I
No,
don't
I'm
really
gonna make
have
all of
a.
my kids dress in tunics. Okay,
don't re-
there's going to be
Sounds
no gendered
culty.
clothes.
yeah,
Sounds
that does sound
culty.
a little bit culty.
So I don't really
Good.
have like an issue with like raising people gender neutral, like in that sense that you guys are talking about. I just mean like if we're not living and we're not raising them gender neutral, right? They are presenting as like, I guess, the gender, you know, that they're typically born or present as. It's just there is, I mean, even if they're not, right? Like if they are of a certain sex, they are going to be preyed upon. That's like my only thing, you know? They're just going to be socialized by society differently.
I can
So,
see for this,
Yeah.
it just absolutely comes from a place of wanting to protect femme presenting people, right? Because, like,
I mean, even boys,
deal-
right?
we-
They have their
we
own.
deal with a lot of shit.
Yeah, I mean, boys have their own thing too, right? They have their own things that we like need to teach them exclusively, right? So whether that's like interacting with like, again, law enforcement, right? Because men are way more likely to be incarcerated than women, right? Or whether that's you know, how they interact with women, right? So yeah. Anyways, that's topic 2, guys. I'm gonna link the poll in the chat.
That's my
Alright.
dad bringing me a coffee.
Oh, that's so nice.
I
Dad.
Too.
My dad can't even show up.
I'm double parked.
Same. I wish I had a dad to bring
I'm
me
not
coffee.
drinking because
Damn.
it'll make me too depressed.
Virtual high fives.
I love getting drunk, but it's
Oh
so
wait,
many
my dog got
calories.
locked in.
But it's what, Vaush?
So many calories.
That's why you do marijuana.
Man.
Well, I don't like getting high. I like getting drunk.
Yeah, I don't like getting high.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I used to like it more.
I just smoke.
Vaush, can you stop skewing the
vote?
votes, please?
I'm literally not linking it or pushing it or referring to it. I cannot help my chat. I can't help my chat spreading it.
You guys are all simps and stop it. And I say that
Yeah,
as a Vaush stan.
We
They,
all know
they
that
like-
Dylan should have won the first topic, okay, with my expertise on cocksucking demons.
Fucking dick. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You made some really clever puns, and for that you should have won.
Exactly. You should have heard me the other day. I was out in public the other day, and I just went up to some guy and I said, "Can I practice doing stand-up comedy on you? Can I just like practice a brief stand-up set with you?" And I just proceeded to hash out Norm Macdonald bits because I was upset that he died recently, and I just did the Norm Macdonald thing to this random guy out in public, and he was like, "You're the funniest guy I've ever met," and I'm like, "That was Norm Macdonald in all of his glory," and that I just felt like sharing that.
And
Is
then
this,
did
wait,
you
is
just
this a
stand
bit,
up
or
and
did this
clap?
actually happen?
Yeah,
Yes,
did
no, this
everyone
actually
clap?
happened.
And then everybody clapped.
That slaps.
Everybody clapped.
No, that slaps. Stand-up's
I think
really
it's pretty
difficult to
cool.
do.
No.
Yeah, sharing
wanted to
Norm's
do
jokes with
stand-up.
somebody else. It's pretty cool.
I've always wanted to do stand-up, and I love Norm. He was great.
Okay.
I love Robin Williams too.
Nick, you've been relatively quiet. Is there a topic that you would like to talk about?
Oh god, I have no idea. Were we supposed to bring some?
No, I was just asking because you're
Aw.
quiet, so that's all.
Oh
just
yeah, I
wanted
didn't
to
really have
ask.
much to add to
considered
that
of you.
last one, but
Okay.
I'm good for whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So are you guys feeling controversial or like spicy or do you guys want like
I
not
feel good
spicy?
inside.
I'm Vaush.
Is this
Okay.
the greatest book of all time?
Vaush bad.
Can make me bad.
Actually,
Bring it out.
Okay. Should police be able to use deadly force?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
we.
No.
Yep.
What? No.
They have to have the ability to.
Yeah.
Especially here in the States. I mean, got a lot of
Oh,
guns
yeah.
around here. Don't want a gun in private hands to be an anti-cop button. But we should definitely, have much stricter expectations for use of force than we have now, I think.
If
The
they
fuck are
couldn't
we gonna
use deadly
do?
force, why would they wouldn't have guns then, right?
The
Yeah.
fuck are
They
we
don't
gonna
have
do if someone
guns
shoots
in
up
New
a school?
Yeah.
Like, what are we gonna
Yeah.
just do? Shoot the guy in the
I guess
shin
that
and
wasn't
hope
as
for the
good of a
best?
question as I thought it would be. Maybe I should choose a
No,
different
no.
question.
Oh, I'm
No,
sure.
what?
Oh, I'm
The death
sure if we
penalty.
talk long
Talking.
enough, we'll find something we disagree on.
Let's
Um,
talk about the death penalty. Then.
Wait, no, Pixel. I want to know. Do cops have guns in Australia?
I'm pretty sure some of them do, but most of them only have tasers because we don't have guns here. So it's not so much as like we need guns to be able to defend against people with guns. Whereas in America, it's entirely different because half their national identity is based around fucking guns and
Yeah, when
Yeah,
our,
we have a lot of
freedom
guns
and
in
being
this
able to
country.
protect yourselves against tyrannical government, not like us
When
over
our-
here in Australia
when our
without
homeless
tyrannical
people-
government.
when our
When
homeless
do
people
we
dig through the
deploy?
trash, they have to get in a shootout with raccoons already
Exactly.
inside. Yeah.
Chad Logic, do they have guns? Did cops carry guns in the UK?
I
Good
think
chat.
some do. Wait,
Some do.
hold on. I think I've
Needed.
asked this question. Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of them do. I've seen some photos of them with it, but it's not every one of them, right?
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
from Canada.
probably
All
not.
cops have guns here.
Bobbies.
we can't hear you if you're trying to talk.
You're muted.
Oh shit, sorry. Yeah, you've got sorry about that. You've got specialized firearms units. So you've got your beat cops, they don't carry guns, they carry a big old fuck off truncheon, and some of them maybe have got a taser or some shit like that. But if there's like a shooting or something like that, or if there's a black guy walking around that needs to be killed, going about his business,
What the fuck, dude?
Wow.
they call the specialized. They're like, listen, there's a black fella here, looks a bit suspicious. Get some fucking cops with guns down here. Now we need to take him out at once. That's kind of how it goes.
Damn.
Sounds like America.
I just want to say, I don't know if this means anything, but every once in a while, I feel like there's a Twitter post from one of the UK's police agencies saying like, we've taken this gun off the street today, lads. Yes, we did, and it's some like 17th century flintlock pistol. Is that? I feel like the cops who do carry guns, like that's what they're waiting for, right? They're waiting for somebody to pull out like a fucking musket. Or a blunderbuss, and start like pointing out the window of the Big Ben and start firing like duck shot.
Yeah.
The US
passerby.
cops just post weed and go, "We got this drug off the streets." So
Basically,
Oh,
the
he's
way it
got a
goes-
musket.
Teenager.
the tiers over here. You got number 1, butter knife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2 is like sharp wit, because obviously we're very witty over here. Number 3 is like blunderbuss or musket. You know, that's the kind of order of weapons you tend to go with.
That fucking slaps though. It's like rock paper scissors kind of.
Yeah,
I like
sure.
to I like to get onto panels where they're talking about like cops and stuff, and like unironically argue that like all cops should be armed with like Kraft sliced Kraft sliced cheese singles, right? Have you ever seen people cheesing people where they throw the sliced cheese on somebody's face and like they're so
Oh yeah, we do that a lot in Australia.
No.
We do it at politicians too, except with
Oh,
eggs.
Really?
Anyway, other point.
Once,
Yeah.
once in New Zealand, there was like someone threw a dildo at a politician doing like a speech. It was so based. It
Didn't
was great.
somebody
It was
shit at
That's what
Sargon?
happens when you decriminalize sex work, okay? That's what happens. You get dildos thrown at your politicians. Fucking.
I'm pretty sure Sargon of Akkad got horse shit thrown at him.
oh my
We had a
god.
milkshake thrown at him, right? He got a.
Wait,
Yeah,
sorry.
milkshake.
Back to
He
the
got
cheese
milkshake
a few
slices. What was the
times,
what was the point since we spiraled from cheese slices
Well,
to dildos?
Right. So I was just saying
natural
like
progression.
I like to jump onto panels where they're talking about cops and stuff and just unironically start arguing for why we should have cheese slices as their choice of weapon. I also like will jump onto panels and advocate for abolishing schools and putting children directly into the workforce. So I think that's always funny. Yeah.
We
Wait,
I mean, I do-
is the second one unironic too?
Obviously these are like jokes that I'm doing, right? But I argue for them seriously. So
Cool.
The-
You have a very like serious tone of voice when you speak, so I can imagine this going down really well.
oh, people get really
And
mad
just, like-
sometimes. They get really
Oh, it's
mad.
so funny. It's so funny.
I do. I mean,
Should
there
argue
is a refutation of the whole an armed society is a polite society thing, right? Because the gun culture in the United States is fucking ridiculous. We're not doing it to resist government power at all. We're really doing it to to hand off Uzis to 13-year-olds so they can blow their own faces off at the gun shows we irresponsibly bring them to, or we just have an available glut of firearms so that people with psychiatric issues who want to shoot up their school always have a friend they know they can buy it off of. It's some weird shit with the gun culture in this country, you know?
But it's so entrenched in your national identity, like
so
hunting.
entrenched, yeah.
It's like it's hunting. It is freedom or whatever your fucking
Freedom.
conceptualization of freedom is, right? Like that's why it's never going anywhere. And I have no idea how you even begin to navigate it, because when half your country think that any sort of regulation is like, you're taking away my freedom.
Yeah,
Like-
back to the original question though. If we have this
Sorry.
many guns in the country, and like if they tried to remove weapons from police officers right now, that would not go well.
Yeah, it would not. It would
I
not.
That
agree.
would not. Yeah.
I think
That's what I'm saying.
I honestly think that it is so entrenched in our culture. I don't see it as a worthwhile thing for us to be, for us to the whole outlawing guns thing, right? I don't think that's like a really worthwhile thing. We're wasting a lot of time with that.
Yeah.
I think we need to
I agree.
innovate. We need to innovate somehow with that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that
not
we
to
can
pretend like I'm
weaponize
like
it.
Tim Pool or something, but like if guns were banned tomorrow and then they started knocking on your door, actually taking your guns, I don't think that would go over very well, especially in
No.
certain southern states.
Like that.
Yeah, I don't
that's-
think
Were you
you
gonna
should
say
be
RI?
taking away guns.
Sorry, IRI. Sorry. Were you saying?
Oh, I think we have to accept that gun culture is here and we have to weaponize it. So, for example, pass a law that every single homeless person gets a free gun. You would solve homelessness not through them killing each other. People are like, I'm not going to let homeless people get guns, and we got to get them off the street right now. So, weaponize the gun culture.
I just don't know if that's how it would play out, though, right?
I don't
Like, I
know,
feel like a
giving
lot of
poor
people
people
would just be
things.
like, fine, give the homeless people guns, and when they come to rob me, I'll shoot them because we have equal force. Like,
What
I don't
about
know
give
about
children
you.
guns?
I don't know about
Yeah, every
about
child.
rich,
And
rich
when you're
white people
born, you're
hate giving poor people things.
when you're
Give,
born,
give
you
every
get a
children
gun.
a gun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every child a gun. Every homeless child, at least.
I would like a gun. No, that's why I was asking about other countries' cops with guns, because obviously you cannot take it away from American cops, because what the fuck are they gonna do then? Like, there's just
Yeah.
it's just gonna
They're gonna
be
run around
a-
with cheese. Yeah.
it's gonna be terrible. Like, it's just not. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense in America.
Who's going to
but
kill all the minorities?
Oh, I'm sure someone will pick up that mantle.
I don't know. If the cops won't do it, it seems like we'd solve a
Well-
lot of problems.
I mean, true, but also there's I don't know.
maybe
they
it's
just
gun usage in specific situations, right? Like,
Yeah, it seems
depending
like-
on the kind of call.
It seems
is
like
whether
in
or
other
not guns
countries that is what we do. Like New Zealand,
Yeah.
Australia, and England. That seems to be what the cops do. Is it's like not every cop just walking around carries a gun. I don't know about, like, that's fucking terrifying to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know this guy. I don't know if this guy's in a costume and not a real cop. Like, I don't know if he just shot and killed a cop and took his stuff, and it is just like a crazy person walking around with a gun. I don't know anything about him. I don't know if he's gonna racially profile me or like be weird or whatever. Like, why is he like at a mall with a gun? No, thank you.
I feel like I would
don't
ra-
like that. Cops scare me, like, anyways. But that's also because I live in a country where our cops have never done that. So it's like
Yeah.
obviously very normal for Americans, but it scares the shit out of me.
So
When I was okay.
Oh no, it's okay. You can...
Oh no, I was just gonna say, when I was walking around in Texas and then there were people open carrying in like supermarkets, I was fucking freaked out as shit. Like, it was so weird, and I was like, am I about to die? Like, I was literally shopping for like lettuce, and it was like, am I about to die because this person has like guns, like just open carry, just
yeah, and you don't know
wild.
who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm probably gonna have like a unpopular opinion here. But like I would rather have cops like around me having guns. It's just I think that they need to have the quickest way to like if something is really going down, if they show up to like a domestic disturbance and like somebody's like beating up their kid and the kid's about to die, like like
They shouldn't send a
need-
social worker.
No, they should not send a social worker. I fucking hate that. I'm sorry. You can send a social worker along with the cop, but hell no. Absolutely not. You're going to tell me that a social worker
Okay.
can...
But that's a straw man. Nobody's advocating for that. Like, we're talking about if you get an offender bender
I don't
on the
know.
side
I've
of
got-
the street. Like,
think
why do we
there
need
are
to send a
some
cop
I've gotten
on
around?
the
into some
left that argue
arguments
for
where
that.
people have unironically argued that we should just have social workers showing up at people's doors for domestic violence
No.
issues.
Those,
and it's
those are
just like-
trolls like you on panel.
Well, wait, hold, wait.
I don't know.
Wait, hold on. So, I think this is something we should really defer to data on. The vast majority of stuff cops respond to doesn't lead to violence, and if you look at numbers based on like neighborhood and type of call, it skews much more heavily. I think like 8% of police responses involve some like meaningful threat of violence, but if like a lot of those you could see coming, right? I mean, if people are saying like, oh, there's a shooter, or like, oh, here's DV, like that seems fairly obvious. But a lot of what cops do is like so unlikely that violence is going to happen, you know? Like checking up on folks on parole, like traffic stuff. There's a bunch of stuff they do that is just, it's incredibly unlikely that violence gets involved. You know, cops die at like what, 1/8 the rate of pizza delivery drivers. I feel like we overstate sometimes the dangers associated with police work because we repeat propaganda talking points they disseminate in order to justify always maintaining a constant high level of potential threat. I think one of the best things we could do for this as well is normalizing some cultural stuff that would decrease the likelihood of police being necessary in the future. People are on edge around police. Nobody likes being around the police, or at least very few people do. It's always, yeah. So I think if you mitigate stuff like that, you turn down the aggression dial, maybe that percentage point of risk starts to decrease a little bit. I don't think people would like prey on the social workers necessarily, because of course, if a social worker gets hurt, the cops will show up. So it's not like
why do
you're
we have to
Yeah,
send
but
a
we
social
don't
worker
need-
get hurt when we could send a cop with
Just
a social
send a
worker?
cop. And
Should we send a
8%,
cop
that
with every
8%,
pizza
I'm sorry,
delivery
the
driver?
8% number doesn't mean shit to me, because that's 8% of like threat of violence. It doesn't matter
Wait,
if that's 1%.
Hold on, did we
No,
just compare a domestic dispute to a pizza delivery?
The pizza delivery guys die way more often than cops do. Should we send a cop to escort every pizza delivery?
Well, a
I
pizza
mean-
delivery man can have a gun in his car if he's like got like a certification, right?
I don't think they bring it to the door with them. The point that I'm getting at here is that that 8%, the 1% number, these skew elsewhere. The fact is, any job where you move around the city is going to be dangerous in some way or another. But we can't constantly overstate the dangers associated with police work as a way of maintaining their incredibly
It's not
bloated
about
budgets.
the danger.
We
It's
should
not about
find
the danger
ways-
to the police. That's not what I'm arguing about. What I'm talking about is the danger to the person who is the victim in that situation. I don't give a fuck, right? Like
Most
if you're
cop calls
if
don't
you're
have a victim.
Well,
yeah,
even if
most
it's-
don't, but there's still 8%, like you said, where there's threat of
And send
violence,
the
right?
police to the ones where you think there's a likelihood of police being
Doesn't
needed.
matter.
It's not about
We don't. You
replacing
can't
police for
determine that.
everything.
You can't determine that in every case. You can't even
Yeah,
determine
you
that in the
can-
majority of these
your-
cases.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Your argument's logical extension is that every single civic function should be done by the police because you never know if there's a chance at violence. Every
No, if
delivery,
somebody is
every
calling
court
the
position,
police
everything.
if somebody is calling the police for it, like a reason where they feel like they're threatened, then we need to send the police. We
If
don't
they feel
send.
like they're threatened, yes. Wait, yes. If they feel like they're threatened, then yes. But that's not the majority of what cops do. We
But
should
a
find
police
ways
officer
of,
doesn't like
That's what
know
she
their
said the whole time.
Yeah, a police
Time.
officer doesn't know their whole schedule when they
She's
wake
been
up
saying
in
that
the
the whole
morning.
time.
So, I don't,
No,
even like a
but we-
traffic cop could be in a situation where he needs a weapon at some point in the day.
Yeah, every person could conceivably be in a situation where they need
Yeah,
a
but
weapon.
every
at some point.
person isn't
But
dealing with like
every
crime.
person is not being called on
not-
to protect them, right?
Co-
like to be
wait,
protected.
Cops aren't always. No, wait, hold on. Cops aren't always being called to protect things. Cops do a ton of different types
They
of work.
do.
And dispatchers.
I'm not talking about
that-
the other types of work. We're talking explicitly about the type where it is violent or there's a threat of it being violent.
Nobody would advocate sending a social worker in those situations. You talk about the rote managerial work that cops do, admin stuff, some traffic stuff. There are lots of things that cops could potentially facilitate that, that social workers could facilitate with like virtually no risk of violence. And if you think that any risk of violence warrants sending a cop, then cops should be sent for all civic functions because there's
I got a
always
question.
going to be some risk.
I think you should just
Wait,
have
can I-
specific teams with like social workers and cops in almost every situation, and you should be trained to not inflict violence if the situation doesn't call for violence. So like you have to get rid of the systemic racism. You have to get rid of the shoot first mentality, right? But you should be sending a social worker into a cop into a lot of these situations, if not almost all of them.
Wait, I've got a question for Vaush. I have to ask this, okay?
Here we
So basically, when we think about a violent case, right, where a police officer would need to be dispatched, are we keeping cops because for the most part cops patrol? This is just like a general fact of policing. Usually they're in their patrol cars driving around, right? So for that kind of thing, would we need to send, because that's a non-violent thing, would we need to send them back to the station before they get dispatched out to the whatever violent crime scene, pick up a weapon for a specific task, and then delay what could potentially be a dangerous thing, and then send them out there?
No, if there are cops out on patrol, their guns would have firearms in it. Cops always
So-
are armed in the States.
So, yeah, I know this to be true, but the thing is if we're talking about like de-arming police officers and all
No.
of this stuff,
No,
we're not talking about that. We're not talking
Okay,
about
We're
that.
talking about delegating some functions the police fill to social workers. Something
By the
which
way,
has
the
been done
pizza
both
Can we
delivery
get some
illegally and
examples?
statistic,
out.
the pizza
Right, but
delivery
this-
statistic is incorrect.
Hold on.
Wait,
No.
but wait. This is the
We're
thing. though,
cracking
with
the stats
pizza-
out. Let's fucking go.
Okay, but this is the thing with like the pizza delivery guy then too. Like, I feel like if that's a dangerous thing and we're still arming police officers, even though it's supposed to be less dangerous, like, shouldn't we already arm social workers off the cuff?
Well,
Uh,
I suppose we could, but it's not so much about whether or not they're armed. It's about the responsibilities that they're trained to handle. And ideally, you would want these guys to be de-escalatory. One of the problems with cops is that their presence often increases the likelihood of violence, depending on the neighborhood and a bunch of other conditions, because cops are, in America at least, machismo-fueled, like, monster can chugging,
Right.
like,
So I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. But when we talk about the risk of safety it sounds like in that case, it would logically follow that we could just send out social workers with guns and everything gets handled bada bing, bada
Well, because
boom.
no, then the social workers will be treated as police, basically, in like the minds of everybody if they're armed.
But then they still have
There's
the
no
de-escalatory
difference.
training. They still have the de-escalatory
So then we should just make
training.
police officers have de-escalatory
yeah,
training.
just
I
how
like
about we
this.
just
I like this.
how about we just
Police
This is
change
what I'm trying to get at.
How about we
way
just
more
yeah?
per
So I
year
agree
than
with Nick
social
here.
workers do.
I agree with Nick here because we should just be we should be training. Sure, there's room for improvement in the way that we train police, right? But I still
gonna get
will
to. Oh my
not
God.
advocate. I am not going to advocate for a social worker to show up to a call where somebody has called for police. I'm just not going to. If you want to
Well,
hire somebody
wait.
else to do
Wait, for
paperwork,
what, though?
right? That's fine.
Wait,
but
wait.
No, wait, but for what call? Like, what are they calling for?
for like for a domestic violence situation or something
For
like that.
for violence, then yeah, cops should
Yeah,
probably be there.
nobody's
See, this is the
advocating.
thing.
Vosh, hold on.
Wait.
But Stardust, how do they like? There's countries where they don't have guns right now. Like I just read online, 90% of UK cops don't carry guns, and
Yeah, but
they're
these
not
people in
like
the
Mad Max right
domestic-
now.
But the people in the domestic disputes might have guns because we're in America.
Well, that's fine, but like, why does it work in the UK but wouldn't work?
Because they
here?
don't
Because
have
we got
guns.
we got rid of it before it became part of like a national identity and was written into the constitution as like literally a part of the amount of people who argue for the Second Amendment as literally like their entire personality is ridiculous in America.
Wait,
like-
hold on.
But that being
Back up
said, it
for
does
1
exist, so we have
second.
to like realize it's there.
Right.
Wait,
Can we just
hold on.
back up for 1 second, please, for
Alright.
the love of God, okay? So it sounds like arguing for this whole social workers things versus cops when we should just have police that are trained to de-escalate. Like it sounds like you guys are all arguing for the same thing, essentially in a circle, trying to put different names on it.
I think that's probably
I
too
want them
much
to
though.
not
I
be
don't think you can
cops,
expect
though.
that of police officers.
Well, I
Sorry.
think we should have less police officers and we should increase the budget for training and then decrease the budget in other areas. That way we can get them more intensive training.
You're
Hold on, wait,
gonna
wait,
lose
wait,
a
wait,
lot of
wait.
votes for that one,
You-
bro.
You
Wait, hold
need
on.
specialization.
Specialization is a good thing. We can't have cops doing all jobs. Social workers
That's
already
great.
get sent out to do. Right. Also, I just want to point out that delivery drivers do die more often than police officers per capita. I don't know what I said, like 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, or something. That
said
was
8.
I said 8. Okay, yeah, that was. I hope that I was hyperbolizing. It's about 1.6 times, 1.7 times as often for delivery drivers.
Okay, so here's the thing. Within the driver/sales workers and truck drivers group, there were a total 966 fatal injuries in 2018, but just 5% of these were driver/sales workers, which includes restaurant delivery drivers, not just pizza. Vast majority are heavy truck drivers. Of these 966 deaths, 78% were transportation related, which makes sense for truck drivers. Only 2% were homicides, 20 deaths, including heavy truck drivers. By contrast, of the 108 police officers killed in 2018, 49 were homicides.
Oh, could you link?
Wow, so that stat was just completely the fuck wrong.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
Well, can you
sounds
link
like
that?
to me
Stat
Yeah.
BTFO.
that America is fucked. And I think we just leave you guys to it. You guys can do whatever you want with your guns. And the rest of the world should just completely ignore America.
Oh
Thank
god,
you
wouldn't
for-
it be nice? But you literally can't because they
No,
export
I think
so
we
much of
should.
their fucking ideology. Like even
No,
to
let's just ignore
Australia.
Thank you so much.
It's the
Thank you
dream.
so much for creating a normalized sentiment of just if these guys are over here, let them kill each other, Lord of the Flies style.
Yeah, I like
Totally.
whatever. Like, yeah, if you're gonna be crazy
We're gonna
kids
have
with
Lord-
guns on a weird island, like, go for it. Like,
It's
I don't
too
know.
hard because they control
think-
most of our Western media,
No,
right?
No,
There's
no,
like,
no, 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 no. We ban everything from America. Everywhere else in the world. So, like, sorry, I can't come on your panels anymore because actually, this doesn't exist. No communication. Just cut them off.
No
I don't
cheeseburger.
know the
You can't
internet.
enforce that. You don't have any
only
guns.
exists.
Okay. You said,
We
wait,
don't-
fun.
we
Hold
don't
on,
need-
fun.
you
Fun,
can't-
fun.
You can't.
We've
You
got
said-
cheese though, guys.
I
We've
know,
got cheese.
I know.
You can't
Fawn.
reach me with your
Fawn
gun.
is a
I'm on an
huge
island.
fan. You're a huge fan of Burger King. So you're fucked.
No, I'm not that big. I do. I.
Wait,
All right, but
what
we
was
get to
it?
keep all the American media, so you guys. Are
Wait, is
screwed.
this even true?
Yeah.
that's so true. I would have nothing to watch. Like Australian TV is alright, but
Oh
like,
no, Australian TV is terrible. No, but you
Yeah,
can have, you can
okay.
have British
Hold on.
TV. Okay, like there's some stuff out of British. You know, like other. I don't know. Get into anime. Like there's options.
This sounds terrible. What the hell are you talking
no,
about?
it doesn't matter for
exactly.
you. I don't
If
care
you
about
come
anime.
with me-
I'm not
I don't
disputing.
care.
You're
Look at my
responsible.
monster.
You
So-
are responsible
so-
for deteriorating society. What
So
you have
I'm-
done is
Good.
destroyed the world.
So
Good.
I'm not disputing that there is this, kind of cultural domination that America has, right? And I would say, like I myself have even seen like the kind of Eurocentric standards that we've had for like as far as beauty goes, right? So yeah, I definitely see like what you guys are saying, and I think that is though something that has to come like internally, right? I don't know that America can do anything to stop that, right? But like other countries could do what they wanted as far as encouraging their own media to be consumed, right? So
I've got a book
Yeah.
for you, my friend. This right here is
oh
called
my God, he's telling us to
Imperialism.
read.
Yes,
Oh my
Imperialism, the
God.
highest stage of capitalism by
Also
Vladimir
ban
Lenin.
Reading.
No,
Go.
keep reading.
Just go read theory, bro.
I don't
Yeah,
read.
bro,
I
go
don't.
read theory.
You
the
don't need
only
to read
theory I read is keeping up with the Kim Kardashians, and that's not even reading, okay? That's fucking watching something. You can learn
someone
everything
make a
you need to
YouTube
know.
video
Sorry.
about the book, so I don't have to read it. Thank you.
Listen, if you want leftist theory like that, just go on Twitter, okay? Have a look
No.
around, find some unhinged 50-tweet thread about how the
Yo, do you have
Terminator
a
is
Discord
ableist.
server I can use to
and read
find all
that.
this information out? Yeah.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hop on Reddit and you're gonna go
No.
r/Marxism Leninism, and
R
then
slash
what you're gonna
Hassan Piker, yeah.
then what you're gonna want to do is you're going to want to basically go to your nearest arms dealer, buy a Glock, read for a while, and then Roblox yourself.
Wait. No, wait. I think
Roblox
I
is
think
down,
I'm
bro.
still
What are you
right.
talking about?
Look, listen, Vaush is desperate to.
Vaush is still
to
on the
fuck up
numbers,
Stardust,
bro.
okay? He's got to be right, okay? He's got
We're
to be right.
talking
Let
about
him- let him
Lenin
read
right
that.
now.
wait, hold on, wait, hold.
Just said we
Must
should,
find.
Like,
Let's
Wait,
see.
okay, wait.
Who's getting
Wait, I didn't realize we're being
And
obstinate
Vaush is
about
like-
the idea of learning more about this subject. So there are a good number of cops that die per year to traffic incidents themselves. It's not, I mean, right? Like for instance, the biggest killer of cops right now is COVID. But if you take a look at specifically pizza delivery drivers, which is significant, you want to isolate that group. Most delivery drivers never make contact with the person in the house. If you're dropping off Amazon shit or whatever, then you're not. You just leave it at the porch. But pizza delivery drivers make eye contact. And in that case, from what I can tell, pizza delivery. Let's see. Okay, if we take felonious cop deaths, which means they're being killed by a crime.
So what
take a
I
look-
linked to you has nothing about pizza delivery drivers on it. I don't know where
Well,
you're
that's
getting this.
they're the one. Well, I'm just wondering if cops should be escorting them, right? So for the
Right,
one-
but
Pizza
okay, you're
delivery
missing.
people, no.
You're
Like a
missing
lot
the
of
point.
commitment
You're
to
missing the
being
point.
right here.
Drivers
keep it
slash
real with
sales
you, boss.
workers include. Okay, so this is majority of the people who
Wait, what
have
is the
these
point?
deaths are heavy truck drivers, right? Of these 966 deaths, 78% were transportation related. That's
Wait,
what we're
that's not-
talking about, right?
Wait,
Is
that
pizza
wasn't.
by you not no contact right now? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's no
yeah,
Wait,
contact.
wait. Hold on. Wait. Either I'm missing the point or we're all missing the point.
No,
The
we're
point
trying to
that I was
control for
making-
more variables here.
The point that wait, it's not. Wait. Hold on. I'm not sure if any of you understand the point that was made. The point that I was trying to make is that there are many social functions which are dangerous, and that you wouldn't argue that cops should escort like all of them, right?
Well, not if they're transportation related. A lot of people die in car accidents, right? Maybe we should just, not drive cars. I don't know.
Okay, but when you take away the transportation-related deaths and only look at murders or robberies, pizza delivery drivers are still
2%.
victimized at a very high. Didn't you say even 1% was too high earlier?
Well, right. If we're talking about when somebody calls the police, right, and they are under threat of violence, then yes, if that's 1% of the calls, then we should send the police to them. That's a preventable thing.
Do we need to get
the
into
1%?
utilitarianism?
Wait, so
Oh, please, no.
are we
no
just ignoring the
utilitarianism.
fact that pizza delivery drivers can conceal carry if they want to protect themselves?
They
I'm
don't
just
bring
gonna
the
ignore-
guns with them. Wait, that's not the same as having a cop. Every citizen can concealed carry if they want to in most circumstances.
I
Yeah, but we're
just
talking
say-
about
company
cops
cars
having
might not let
guns.
you have company cars might not let you have guns with them. Also, no
Okay.
pizza delivery service would allow their drivers to have a visible holster on them.
I don't know why you're
well-
caught on the pizza
Is that
delivery.
true?
though.
No, I have
Because-
to. I have to say this.
Because
Okay,
the logical
Vaush said-
route is the best kind.
Wait,
Vaush
what
said-
point do you think I was trying to make earlier?
With the
Vaush
pizza
said
the pizza
there was
delivery
eye
drivers?
contact.
There was.
What,
we,
what
I guess
point-
what we thought we were
point
trying
do you
to
think
say.
I was trying to make?
I guess we thought you were trying to say something to the effect of, if the police or pizza
I
drivers
was just
are killed
pointing-
at a higher rate. Like, I think she was just trying to point out.
I was
the flaw
pointing
with
out
the
that was
statistic.
wrong. That was wrong. The stat that you're saying that pizza delivery drivers are murdered at a higher rate than cops are, or that they die or whatever at a higher rate than cops do, and that their job is more dangerous. I was pretty much saying that was wrong because this
Their job
data
is more dangerous.
The data,
That is-
well,
is a fact.
No,
Look, we can
no,
replace pizza delivery drivers
it's
with a different
not.
job, and his comment
wait, it
logically follows
is.
still.
So, but
Okay,
we're not talking about how
so,
dangerous
again,
it is. We're talking about.
We're talking
oh, no.
about. We're not talking about like the rate of homicides that pizza delivery drivers encounter, right? Because it's 2% of all transportation or drivers / sales workers, right? That's 2%. That's not even specifically pizza delivery people, right? I don't know where you're getting pizza delivery, but if it's 2% of drivers / sales workers that are homicides, right? That's like
Didn't you
the
say
pizza
before 1%
delivery,
is-
right? That's but again, this is not people calling for help, right?
Okay, so
You're wrong,
if we
dude.
take
Just
a look
accept that
right
you're
now,
wrong.
wait, no, I still don't think you understand the point. If we're talking about which responsibilities can be delegated to non-police entities, right? There's always going to be a risk, no matter what the job is, that the job you do might meet with violence. Whether you're being a pizza delivery driver or you're checking up on people on parole or you're checking up on traffic violations. There's always the possibility that what you do might meet with violence. So you made an argument that any chance of violence was sufficient to warrant sending a police officer. And my rebuttal to that was, if that was the case, police officers should be fulfilling basically every civic function in this country, because every job carries with it some potential risk of violence. Certainly pizza delivery drivers.
So
So-
okay,
So what you're
again,
saying is
pizza
everyone should
deli-
be armed. Literally everybody should be armed,
So-
no matter what they do. Teachers should be armed. Pizza drivers should be armed. Everybody who has any chance of coming into contact with
would like
violence
to
should be
be
armed.
Wait,
Okay,
yeah,
so
so then it
here's the
comes-
thing.
I would
Here's
like
the
one.
thing, right? Okay, so again, this is if you're looking at just deaths, we don't. I mean, I don't know that we would send police, just because of that, right? We look at like homicides, what's dangerous, right? Again, 2% of driver / sales workers are homicides. They die from homicides, right? The rest of that is like the vast majority of it is transportation
That's not a
related
relevant
deaths.
statistic.
It
When we're
is
ta- what we're
it is
talking about
relevant,
is
right? Because you're talking about
No,
homicides
it's not.
of pizza delivery drivers, right?
Yes.
They are
And
under that
robberies, which we're not
category.
including here, but that's
That
pretty
they
common
are
as well.
under that category.
Wait. Can we just talk about the
yeah, but we're
utility
not
that comes from sending fucking pizza or police officers with pizza delivery drivers? And how
What-
expensive
Dude,
that
I'm
would
gonna
be?
call the people.
And how
Wait,
like,
wait,
next time
wait,
we
you're
just
right.
do it.
Yes, of
completely
course I'm
agree.
right. I know
Sending
I'm right.
police officers to assist delivery drivers or to be the delivery driver would be a tremendous waste of money. So
It is
maybe there
incredibly
are other
inefficient,
things
which is
we
why
send
I don't
police.
know why we're getting hung up on this fucking point. It's such
So
a bad
maybe
point.
I agree. So maybe there are other things that cops get sent to which have very proportionally low risks of violence that we could delegate to
That's not
social
what we're
workers.
So can you
talking
give an
about.
example
We're
of something
talking
where, like,
about
we're talking
people
about
calling.
explicit violence.
Yeah, we're talking about explicitly violent situations. I'm not talking about
Nobody
pizza
has
delivery.
argued against that.
Then
But
what are we
what about
talking
the-
about?
what about-
Pizza
wait,
delivery
what
drivers
about
aren't calling for the
non-
police.
What
Wait,
about
wait, you guys are talking
non-explicitly?
past each other.
What about non-explicitly violent situations? Like, for example, when the cops get called because a homeless person is being rowdy, or because of a mental health checkup, or
You-
because somebody wants somebody to supervise as they move stuff out of another person's house, or
But
because
what
they're
kind of
concerned
mental
about
health checkup?
What about
I'm-
wait? What about when people have noise complaints on neighbors? Are these all things we need to send military gear equipped cops over to
So-
deal
Are they
with?
coming with M16s?
I mean, you can make an argument for it because the possibility in America is that everyone could be armed, right? Like that's the problem you have
yes,
here.
then every civic function should be done by cops. We should just have cop jobs, and everyone all the time is
Wait,
just wearing Kevlar and has a gun on them, right?
See,
Well,
this
I
is the
mean,
thing
that's
that I
your
think we're-
logical
We're-
conclusion, but
No,
like, what's the
my
problem?
logical
Okay, so
Is
for
everybody
the-
who owns
for
a
the-
Glock military
do.
geared?
For the homeless people, right? I don't know how often you've like interacted, but that
I
can
grew up
turn
in LA.
into-
You don't need to
Okay.
patronize.
All right. I'm not trying to patronize you. I'm just for anybody really.
How often do you
it
think
can
cops
be-
die to homeless people?
I'm not talking about them dying, right? But it can
Yeah, I
be
mean, homeless
a
people
violent.
probably die to cops
if you
more
let
than
me
the other way
finish,
around.
right?
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Wait, if there's a
So-
disturbance with a homeless person, it's not just the police officer that's in danger.
Oh
it
my
could be the
God,
person
guys,
with the
come on!
disturbance.
Okay.
The vast
So
majority
what I'm saying-
of situations like that are not like a homeless person running around with a knife. It's usually
No,
just
of course not. I'm not saying that. I
loitering.
didn't even get to finish what I was saying before you guys, like 3 people jumped in. Okay, so what I'm saying, right, in a lot of these situations, there is still the risk for it to turn violent. Maybe not against the
always
police
the risk.
officer, but against whoever is calling, right? That's
But
why
that
we
risk
send.
exists all the time.
Yes, but
Always.
pizza delivery drivers, if they call the police, then the police will probably show up to help them too, right?
By then it's too late. They already appeared at the
Exactly. That's why we
person's
can't
doorstep.
send a social worker for everything.
No, that's my point. Wait, okay, hold on. Why shouldn't we just have police officers fulfill every civic function? Because we acknowledge that any time the state needs to send anyone anywhere, it does involve violence. Maybe they should go with EMTs every time. Maybe when the meter maids that take coins out of the parking things, maybe cops should be sent there. That is a potentially dangerous job. You never know. Maybe anytime food health inspectors show up to restaurants, they should be cops too, because that is also something that could potentially lead to violence. Every job carries a risk, but we have to decide maybe, and by the way, Americans are the ones with this problem. Other countries have this figured out better. Maybe we don't need to send cops to everything. Cops are overworked. They're not trained for the huge range of jobs they're asked to perform. We're so
Right.
paranoid in this country.
Can we
don't
get some
consider
solid,
the
like,
possibility.
I don't-
Examples, like, what kind of mental health disturbance would you just want to send a social worker to?
Someone's gonna kill themselves. We
Yeah,
need to
someone's
send
gonna
just
jump off a
social
bridge.
worker. Yeah.
Now, is the person
It's
who's going to kill themselves armed,
No.
or is it just like
Because
someone's
they're
going to
jumping
jump
off
off
a
a
If
bridge?
there's ever an alert that the person in trouble is armed, then they would send a cop.
Yeah.
But oftentimes mental health checks are literally like a call is received. Hey, I think my friend's like feeling depressed. Can you check in on them?
So we
The-
have
the
things
cops-
like
And
this.
you
They're
wouldn't
called
have the
welfare
accurate
checks,
information
right?
to know they're not
You can
armed.
call people and get a welfare check on them, right?
Who does it?
Well, they don't
sometimes
kick
it's
down your door when you get a welfare
yeah,
check.
it's
No,
just
but we
like a
should-
social
wait.
worker or
Yes,
yeah.
Wait,
You
so we
co-
should
that
be
cops get
prescribing that
sent.
we should be prescribing that it should be social workers because cops are armed
For
and this
elderly
tends
people,
to
it's
lead to
social workers.
escalate. Good, but see, a lot of the time, people who have depression or things of that nature, or like there was that case of the guy who was going to kill themselves and the cops straight up shot him. Okay, so there's cases where cops get sent to deal with mental health checks, and that leads to just more and more escalation and eventually antagonism of the person who's going to do something potentially harmful. to
Imagine having a
themselves or
mental
others.
health crisis and a fucking cop shows up. Holy shit, I'm mentally well, and if a fucking cop knocks at my door like, "This place, you okay there?" Like, holy shit. Yeah, but they're probably not the best people to send. They're like the opposite of mental health trained. They're like,
They
they're-
do that
yeah.
in America?
Yes,
Yeah.
They do.
welfare checks,
Okay,
they
they
send
do that
cops,
here
and they
too. I
do
was
kick
just
down
thinking.
doors, and they will pull
Not
guns on you
necessarily, but-
sometimes.
No, they. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Not
Are you
Yes.
conflating like
necessarily.
a swatting with like a mental health check?
No, in mental health checks, at least where I grew up, and in basically every experience I've ever heard, they send cops, and those cops treat every single like welfare check like they're busting in a fucking booby-trapped
All
like
right,
ram
every
jungle.
single one.
Not every
Wait,
single
every
one,
single
but a
cop
lot
or
of
every
them.
single welfare check?
You just said like.
Wait, okay, the broader point is that cops are not equipped to deal with these kind of things because they're not trained in de-escalation. They're trained to be like militarized civilian commandos coming out here and taking people down. They're trained to deal with criminals. They have the mentality to be trained to deal with
I think
criminals,
part of the
not
reason
mentally
it's-
unwell people.
I
That's
think
the
part of the
broader
reason
point.
it sounds so unhinged to send a police officer anywhere is because like kind of people like you think that cops are just military geared out fucking I don't know black ops agents who kick down doors and shoot fucking suicidal people.
Do you think? Wait, do
I mean,
you
we
think
have
that
stats
cops,
in their
wait,
behavior.
Wait, do
People
you
like
think? Wait, no. I am
you-
talking. I am talking right now. Okay. Do
Oh,
not put
okay.
words in
So
my
when
mouth
it's when
to
it's
quote
you,
Startup.
when it's you, it's okay.
Yes.
When it's me, it's different. It's different. Three people can interrupt me when I'm talking.
I'm maximizing
'cause you're a
my
woman.
utility right now.
Of course
okay?
it is.
It is.
So the thing is again, like Vaush said, the numbers show that cops are way more likely to do this than social workers. Like it's not even comparable. The second thing is yes, they're absolutely militarized, ready to go. They carry guns, pepper spray, like mace, like billy clubs with them. They're basically ready to take people down. Like they are driving around in armored vehicles a lot of the time. There's so many fucking
So-
cops.
So
out
should we
there.
replace it
I
with
am-
Priuses?
Yes,
We should
because it would be
send
better for the
social workers
environment.
to
I am
those
not
who-
I'd like to see
disagreeing
cops-
that we can
And Priuses.
I'm not disagreeing that we can certainly train people better, right? Certainly. But this comparison with pizza delivery drivers for whatever reason just
I don't
doesn't
know-
seem
no, you
very
don't know why
apt to
I
me.
did it. The point that I'm making is that some jobs carry risk, but that doesn't mean we always send cops to do it. Do you think that like we've arranged the perfect balance right now? Like right now, everything cops do, it's perfect for them to do it.
No,
And
I mean,
everything
no.
cops don't do, it's perfect for
I
them
think-
to not do it.
I think that definitely there are things that we can work on, right? Like there certainly like paperwork, right? But like but a lot of this, right? What we're talking about, you're talking about these on the field things. I think we still need cops for.
I think-
We're not,
Would it be-
nobody here has said we should abolish all cops. We're just saying
I'm
that there
gonna say
are
that.
I,
roles.
No,
I
just-
never
just,
said that you said that.
I mean,
Wait, then why are you arguing against the consistent position that I have held?
That is
Which
like
is
a-
that there are
Consistent
roles at
position.
least filled right now that we could have filled by social workers.
I just think there needs to be more of a balance. America's in a really shitty spot because everybody could potentially be armed, which is why like cops go into situations heavily armed, which is very problematic. But at the end of the day, we also have to talk about what kind of people go into becoming cops and why they do it, right? Like the role has to be entirely changed because people go into this job for whatever sort of power trip it creates
what?
a lot of the time.
You think that people only become cops because they want to go for a power trip?
A lot
No,
of them do,
I think
yeah.
I think some people maybe go in wanting to make the world a safer and a more just place, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who go into it to inflict power on others.
Or it's just like a stable job with some good pay. I don't know.
True,
all
because
something- just
why?
as a
They care
quick,
about
as a
their
quick,
Capitalism has allowed for very little people to have any sort of social mobility, and becoming a cop or joining the military or is one of those things where you can get a stable income where you can actually survive. So yes, there is lots of reasons, but you can't ignore the power dynamics at play here.
I think it's a quick, just a quick reality check. So a welfare check, the reason why you call somebody to do a welfare check is because you think somebody might be in trouble. Somebody, it could be an elderly person, maybe has fallen down or something, and you don't have the ability to get to the residence. The reason why you do a welfare check is because a cop can go to the residence, they're allowed to
Sorry,
knock,
I
and then
didn't
if they have
mention-
reason to believe that something bad has happened, they can break in to get into the house to make sure that the person is okay. A cop doing a welfare check isn't a cop walking up to the door and screaming like, "This is the fucking police, open the fuck up." That's not what a welfare check is, and that's not how police conduct themselves during a welfare check. Just a quick heads up for that.
Thank you.
I
Is that really
forgot
When
to.
did Destiny jump in here? What the hell?
forgot to
Awesome.
mention. I just pulled him in.
Let's really get
He's
these
about somebody
Let's
sounded
get
like
this fucking
Destiny.
show on the
I
road.
was like,
Let's fucking
It is
go.
Destiny.
Let's get that camera
British
on.
No,
accent.
well, I was confused.
Let's
Um,
fucking
No,
go.
I think no, I think
Let's get out of
I
it.
gave you the
if we
link
wanna
to
defer
the
like,
video chat.
if we want
Destiny,
to
if you want
defer
it.
to broader research on this, there are plenty of criticisms of the way that police are used in this country, the ubiquity with which they're used, the ways in which they're trained, and the fact that we overload them with basically every civic function that we send people out to do that we can get away with. So the argument that no, not literally every welfare check is them storming down the door, but yes, there have been plenty of arguments made, even from people in the police departments, that a heavier focus on de-escalation could be achieved with non-police officers, because police officers' first priority, in accordance with their training, is always going to be, well, not very de-escalatory.
So a cop's goal is always to de-escalate, but I mean, if a cop is called to an area, then obviously that might not be what's happening. If you've called a police officer, you're already in an exceptional circumstance, of course. The reason why cops are sent out to places is because of liability. And this is why even with social welfare checks, or when a social worker is called, oftentimes you want a police officer there for liability reasons. If you're getting to an area where something has escalated so much that you feel like you need to call external parties to help with some sort of mental health crisis, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to enter an area where somebody needs the authority to apply force, which is by the state, that's going to be there in order to have that person on hand to do it. This is why even if we do these things where social workers show up to places or whatever, if you're calling like somebody to do this, you're probably going to have to send a cop along anyway.
Yeah, but aren't
no,
we at a
I
point now
strongly
where
disagree.
people are like, some people are scared of the cops, and there needs to be a way to call somebody that's not a cop to deal with your situation too?
Yeah, but so like here's the problem, okay? Is that if you're a social worker and you were, and I super recommend if anybody ever wants to drag an actual social worker onto this to talk about it, when you're a social worker and you're calling this, people seem to think that like social workers are called in because, oh, you know, like Johnny's feeling really depressed and maybe he's a little suicidal and we want to call a social worker over to the house to chat with him. This isn't like what social workers are typically called to homes for. They're usually called to homes in the event of like a mental health crisis. So it might be somebody's like literally locked in a bathroom with a knife saying they're going to kill themselves. It might be somebody that's taken their child out and they could be at risk. It could be somebody locked up with a gun. Like these are the types of things you call a mental health like professional for. Even inside institutions, there will be people that will make calls to police officers when they're dealing with certain types of patients. These situations are they're really difficult, and oftentimes you need somebody that's ready to assume the violent liability there in order to handle the situation, which is why cops are involved in these sorts of things so often. I don't really see a way around that, unfortunately.
So you think that every role the cops fill right now is one which needs to be filled by cops? And
it's
all
not
the
filled-
roles which are not filled by cops, it's acceptable for the risks to be taken by a person who isn't capable of exercising that violence.
Well, it depends on what roles you're talking about. If we're going back to the pizza driver thing, I don't think calling a cop is going to help you avoid like a drunk driving accident or something. Like if we're talking about these types of things, then no. Also, individuals can carry firearms with them if they want. They can call the cops if they want. There's other things there. But secondly, the problem is that when people talk about like, oh well, we need to do these things, or we need to not have cops go here. We need to have some other person. When you start to ask questions about, well, what other kind of person is, you're just going to be building a different type of cop. So I'll say, okay, well, so in a mental health crisis, you don't want cops? You'll be like, well, no, of course not. It's like, okay, so who should go? A social worker. Okay, well, the social worker needs to have training to subdue somebody. You agree with that, right? Well, yeah, be a social worker with that training. Okay, we also probably need to vest some authority in them to like apply force, right? Well, yeah, of course. They probably need a weapon, right? Yeah, at least like a taser or something. Okay, you're basically just building a cop again, right? It's
And
easier
that's
to take
every
a cop
role
and...
that a cop fills
Wait,
right now.
wait. But don't you think that there are situations
which we send cops to do things like they monitor fucking public high schools and shit like that, where we could have someone who's way more well equipped to do this take over this job, because this is the position that I think me
Wait,
and
have
Vaush
you
are
ever
trying
gone to
hold
a
here.
high school with metal detectors?
Have I ever gone to a high school with metal detectors?
Yeah.
Do you think people bring guns to every high school or something?
Wait, hold on.
Have
So a
you
lot of
been
high
to-
Why do
schools
you
have
think
metal
there's
detectors
metal
now, right?
have you been to a school where like violent fights break out every day? Like that's like the type of place where we're
Hold on.
talking
Wait,
about,
wait.
right?
Okay, wait. Hold on.
Yeah,
We
and
need to
usually
be-
teachers
wait,
get in the
wait.
middle of those fights and break them up. Like
We need
No,
to
they
be-
cops
don't.
needed.
No, no,
yeah,
wait,
absolutely
hold on.
not that
they-
type.
Stop,
Not
stop,
that
stop.
type.
This
They
is
need a cop.
No.
This is wait, hold on. This is
Absolutely.
complete
What are you
anecdote
talking
jerking.
about?
Okay, if you hold on. This isn't some radical lefty concern. Police are dramatically overworked in this country because they do get sent out for so much, and this is something that is different in other countries. It's a problem that we have in particular. Now, obviously, America has a higher rate of gun ownership, but the percentage of like cop time that's spent on violent calls or like in direct immediate threats of violence is quite a small portion of what they do altogether. Oftentimes they show up to take notes after a potential property crime. They respond to non-criminal calls. There are traffic issues. Mental welfare checks are not all somebody's at such a point that they're probably going to kill themselves. You can just call the cops and say, hey, I'm worried about my friend, and with no other information, and they'll send police officers. The idea that
Well, but why are you
all of
calling the
these
cops?
roles need to be because Americans like calling cops.
Okay, but that's American.
because-
If you're
wait,
calling
who
a
else-
police officer and say you're worried about
who-
your friend, what is it? I don't know. My friend just lost his holographic Charizard. Can you go check up on
So
him? Like,
when
what are
you
you saying
call
when you call the police?
the information you give them will dictate the response they decide to send. If you tell them that there's a hostage situation, they send a SWAT team. If you tell them something less important than that, they send a police officer. And maybe in a better world, if you told them something that seems not immediately threatening, they could send somebody who's not even a police officer, somebody whose job deals more with interpersonal interactions and de-escalation than what cops do. The ideal cop would be able to do all of these roles, but we know they can't. We know for a fact they can't. There are severe criticisms of the way that our police spend their time in this country.
Yeah, this is why we we're talking about specialization earlier, okay? This is why it's important to send people who are more equipped to handle these things out. I don't know why we couldn't why we beat around the bush with that all so
Can I
much.
share an anecdote?
Please.
Yeah.
Sure.
So once, my friend did something not so good at my house and called the ambulance. Actually, she called the ambulance on herself because, yeah, she was like, I think I'm a danger to myself, so should probably go get some help. And then, even though she called the ambulance and told them what happened, a paramedic showed up. And the police also showed up because there was someone doing something harmful to themselves. And I think that kind of made sense because they didn't know in what kind of headspace she necessarily was, or if what kind of weapons she might have had. Like, I do think that it kind of made sense for the police to show up, but also this is New Zealand, so the cops didn't come in with guns or anything, and they just had a very calm conversation with us to figure out what had happened, and then the paramedic took us to the hospital. And I feel like that kind of made sense to
So
me.
there
That
are-
situation didn't seem bad.
I don't know the specifics of New Zealand police treatment, but I imagine they don't have the same issues that we do. It's also possible, I mean, you could make the argument for sending an EMT and an ambulance after pretty much every police call, right? Like, you never know if there's going to be a problem. Obviously, we all have to learn when to draw the line on expenditures of police or state resources. And I'm only saying that, and again, this isn't some radical lefty opinion. This has been a criticism for decades. We do overtax police by having them fill a ton of roles. Seriously, if we could just get response to non-criminal calls, like not even an implicit threat, done mostly by social workers, we could cut down on the amount of police time responding to calls by nearly a third. And the benefits of that would be enormous with regards to city budgets, with the actual well-being of these cops, because it would probably mean that they're a little bit less strained. I think that you can like make really good arguments for some types of work being delegated, and we can try this on a city by city basis. Maybe we don't need cops standing guard at these high schools. Maybe having social workers there would work better. I know that I don't know what the data is on like having cop guards at high schools like leading to increased rates of graduation or lower violence are, but I do know that recently there was that dad project. You had like 24 kids who were arrested for scuffling in the school. So a bunch of dads got together and they now they're there, and now kids aren't getting arrested because the dads are there to just sort of, I don't know, dad shame people, stuff like that, you know. Like, we have to get rid of the idea that everything is dangerous, so everything has to be done by a cop, and like, oh, cops aren't great at everything and they're actually quite bad in America at de-escalation. Well, that's just a risk we have to take. We need to be more exploratory than that, city by city.
Do you think though in most situations it should be both? Like there should be this specialization where there are teams of people where somebody is trained, you know, in firearms, and then there is a social worker involved.
Yeah, but we can come up with different combinations and different practical applications in all types of settings, which I think would be important. But there's lots of practical applications where we don't need to send police at all. That's the important thing.
I'm having a hard
time.
I'm having a hard time understanding what these like mental health crises are that are so essential. You need to call a third party that you wouldn't want a police officer there for liability reasons. I'm just curious. I'm genuinely asking, is there like an example, or
are you asking because you don't know? Have you ever had a welfare check? I don't
know if this is supposed to make the argument stronger. What I'm asking is if you've escalated something to the point where you have to make a phone call, you're saying, hello, there is a situation that is so out of control where I'm at right now, I need to bring in another person to deal with it. But it's fine, I don't need a cop. I'm just curious, what are those types of situations? That's what I'm asking.
So, welfare checks oftentimes are done literally just because you're concerned about a person. I know that, and I could dig this up, and I don't know if there's specific data on this, but the idea that every welfare check is being done because an American has waited for the last resort and only now are they willing. A lot of people panic call 911 because that's the only option we have when it comes to asking the state for any kind of interference. Unless you have a friend in the neighborhood of whatever friend you're concerned about, the state has nothing else for you. There's nothing else you can send. There's no other number you can call. It's the cops. So we, in many cases, we don't even have a normalization of the channels that people could go through to indicate they want someone other than a cop. But I'll say this, I have called welfare checks on somebody because I was worried about them, and I did have to call the cops. But I wouldn't have if there had been an alternative. The cop was undesirable, but preferable to the absence of information entirely. And thankfully, nothing happened. She was fine. The cop didn't do anything bad.
So if we're making a welfare check on somebody, we're implicitly or explicitly
are people
saying,
in chat really
there's a
having a
chance
problem
that you're
with
gonna go
who
to
I
a
bring on
house,
this panel?
and the
You don't
house
get
you're
to
going
determine
is a
that.
dead
You can go
person
get
inside. You might
fucked.
even
I'm
need to
sorry, I
break
don't give a
into it.
fuck.
Like, do we just send like a social worker there and then they either break in, or when the social worker gets there, if nobody answers, or do they call the cops?
I think that is an extraordinarily small fraction of the total range of. Again, this would be like every time.
Okay, you keep trying to say like, wait, hold on. You keep trying to
Wait,
say.
I'm sorry. Do you have numbers on how often that is the case?
Okay, it's not about how often. It's about the possibility of it.
There is
being the
always
case.
a possibility that any state action, anytime you send anyone to fulfill any role at any house, something horrible could happen. Now, if you would ask the majority of people
Stay
calling for a
positive,
welfare
420.
check,
This
do
is
you
a
want a
panel
cop
full of
or a
lefties. You can
social
shut the fuck
worker
up.
sent
Like,
to the house of that
no,
person?
it's not
I
an
would be
ambush on
willing to bet
anybody.
the majority would ask
Somebody
for a social
wanted
worker.
in.
Not all, but I do think that's a decision they should at least be able to make.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if that's even a situation, because there would have to be further explanation given there. When you're making a call for a welfare check, what you're telling the operator on the other end is there is a chance that you're going to a residence that you might need to break into, and there's a chance that there might be a crime scene because there might be a body. That is the entire point of a welfare check. A welfare check means that there is somebody that you are concerned about in a house and you cannot get a hold of them in any way. So they're not responding to any sort of phone call, cell phone, whatever, and you don't have another friend that you can go check up on them. So when you call an operator, you're saying they could be dead, there might be a crime scene, you might need to break in to check on that person. That's the point of a welfare check.
Right, so when we generally have welfare checks, do you think that it's an initial first move or a good idea to just send some cops there willing to barge down and break down the door? Do you think that that's like the best outcome when most often we don't need these cops to come out here and handle these situations when we could have a social worker go knock, check on the door, make sure the person's alive, and then leave. Especially when cops are more threatening, they are more intimidating, and it definitely is going to make someone having a mental health crisis more on edge and more feel more antagonized or feel more problematic.
So like that's
So,
that is
we
a,
have to
that's a
feel-
potential thing. But so here's the question then, right? Since cops are hooked up to EMTs and can get all these people on the line very quick, they usually have training when breaking and entering. Let's say that you think there might be somebody that's suicidal. You do a welfare check, okay? But you don't think they're like a threat to anybody. You're just like a little bit worried. Let's say that a social worker shows up to the house. They knock 3 times. They don't get an answer. At this point, there's 2 paths. One, are these social workers also trained to like break and enter doors or whatever? Are they ready to assume that liability? If yes, then they can. Okay. If no, then now they have to call the police to do a break and entry. Let's say that in the time you call the social worker and they're there, the person's like on the floor, like choking on their own fucking tongue because they're trying to OD on some drug or whatever. I guess like are you worried about the fact that now you're just causing more and more time between like a breaking and entering, which you would need to do to check in on some people that might be in the process of killing themselves? Like, is there some number of like, well, it'll happen to 1%?
I don't.
so
no,
wait,
I'm
wait,
pretty
wait,
sure
wait, wait,
social
no, no,
workers
I'm
can
gonna
be
answer
trained
this.
for the necessary. First of all, we're talking again about fringe cases. Second of all, I'm pretty sure you could train social workers in that way and give them legal permission in welfare checks to
Wait,
engage
so
in.
are
Wait,
social
wait, no,
workers
I
just
want to
like-
get in here. I want to get in here, okay?
Wait,
I
it's
need
okay.
to get involved with this. I have a fucking question.
Wait. I want to. Then I'd like to finish my response if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
The biggest rebuttal to this is that the first people you send for a welfare check aren't the cops, it's your friends and family if they're nearby. If we really thought of welfare checks as something like, okay, they could encounter a dead body, there could be a threat, then people would always first call the police. But if they have friends and family in the area, those are always the first people that you call when you want to check up on somebody's well-being. Clearly, in practice, welfare checks aren't like, who are you sending to collect the body? We're talking about overwhelmingly a situation where at least you just check in on the house and see if anyone's there, if anyone's in need of assistance, and at worst usually involve a situation that I legitimately think a social worker would be better trained for than a cop. Cops in America, I just would not trust dealing with somebody in a mental health crisis, but a social worker could be trusted because their interpersonal training hasn't been corrupted by the kind of machismo-laden like police, like us versus them training that is a very oft criticized
this is
statement.
not
Wait. No. I need to get in here before you guys move on, okay? Wait. Not just that, but wouldn't it be like a better option to send social workers in initially alone to check on this premises?
No, we
and
just
then they
went
could
over
have police,
this.
like,
We just
behind
went
them?
over this.
Oh,
Wait,
so
no.
the person's
We
choking
just
on the
went
floor,
over
you're just
this.
wasting
Wait, no.
time.
You're wasting time.
Wait,
You
no.
are.
Yeah, so we could literally have police like be
Oh
down the
my
street, or they
God.
could wait in the car and come with the social worker, and then the social worker. Can
I'm
just go
sorry,
wait
dude. No.
come in the house.
We're
I
missing
know,
the
but that's
entire
Dylan,
point,
Dylan,
which
we've
is
already-
who are you
About-
calling?
Wait,
Who
aren't
are
we
you
talking about, like,
calling if a
stretching-
vampire's trying to suck your dick?
Wait,
We're missing
no,
the entire point.
No,
Aren't
we're
we
not
talking
starting with
about
this
stretching
again.
the police too thin? So now we're sending even more fucking people to go handle
Can I
something
get
that
it
You
right?
know
Yeah.
what? Yes, because I don't want police going in situations where someone might kill
Okay,
themselves.
but the way
because
you guys
people
are describing social
terrified of the
workers, it's
police.
just like a cop that you like better that doesn't have a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the cop, they don't even have to go with.
Also,
It's-
this
yeah.
idea
I
of,
don't
like,
think
no,
people
that's not
have
the
to
case.
go
That's
that way.
Showing up-
absolutely not the case.
I
It is
just-
a state
Dylan,
worker
I'm
that has
sorry.
like all the vested
No,
authority.
people-
whatever,
wait,
who's
hold-
gonna
wait, hold
call
on,
the
wait,
cops
wait, that's-
ultimately
Every
anyway.
time we
Hold
find
on.
an issue with a social
hold on,
worker, you just go, well, let's
stop,
just
stop,
give them
stop.
clearance.
Wait, hold on. That's an incredibly stupid take. The idea that
Wait,
because
no, the
cops and
incredibly
social
stupid take is that
wait,
every
wait,
cop is
hold
gonna
on.
show
Let
up
me
at the door,
finish.
is gonna be some
Destiny,
macho guy trying to mow you
Destiny,
down.
They're just
hold
shoving a
on.
monster
Not the
energy
case.
drink and killing
Destiny,
black people.
Destiny,
That's
it's
not
a
what
hold
cops
wait,
do,
hold,
typically.
wait. The idea that people think of cops the same way they would think of a social worker because they're both agents of the state is laughably dumb. People don't look at a cop and think, oh, that person works for a government. They think that's a cop.
I'm not
The
talking about
uniform,
optics. I'm
the
talking about what you're
badge,
describing.
the gun.
I mean,
So
if we want to
mental
look
health
at the polling data,
crises
the
are
majority of
very-
Americans have favorable views of cops anyway. Not every
We're
cop
not
is like
talking
the
about whether or
videos
not
that
they
used
have
to be
favorable views of cops. We're talking about your statement that in mental health crises, people would view social workers about the same way as they view cops because they're both agents of the state.
Okay,
There's a
I'm
huge
just curious.
difference
I just want to
between a
hear. I
person
just want to hear your response to this. Do you think a person experiencing a mental health crisis that sees a state licensed social worker coming views them in a favorable light? I'm really curious.
I
what you
think
about this.
more favorably than a cop. I'd be willing to bet that's the case. Yes.
Okay, I don't necessarily think so.
Different uniform.
Wait,
basically.
no. I want to hear. Wait. I want to hear his rationalization for why someone would think of a
Yes,
cop
Davey
more
did exactly
favorably.
the same perfectly.
I want
Depending on
to hear his
your-
rationalization.
Cop
Depending
knocking,
on-
you know,
because
got the badge and the guns and shit. Like, oh yeah, that's the same as some dude in a polo shirt who has like a little state ID on there. Yeah, no, I know.
So I mean, you
I
can
think
joke
it's a
about it all
bunch
you
of
want.
white
No,
people
no,
who
it's,
talk
it,
about
it is
how
it is a
people
joke.
perceive
Yeah,
cops.
it's very funny.
Okay, we can go
Okay,
to real
but the
examples,
actually-
right? Wait, no, hold on, wait. Okay, Jesus
Sorry.
fucking Christ. Okay, so for all of you that none of you have experience with people that have mental health crises, I understand that. That's fine. It's
Are you
totally
talking about
normal.
me?
Okay, yes, all of you. Yes. Okay, so people that have had
very
mental
presumptuous
health
of you.
crises, people that I can tell by the way that you talk. So people that have had serious mental health
That
crises,
cops and social
especially-
workers would be considered differently by people in
No, that
crisis.
you have
Okay,
no
let's-
idea
let's
how
let each other
absolutely
finish.
frightened somebody can be of a social worker that's representing the state when it comes to a mental health crisis.
I'm only saying they would probably be less so them than by a cop. That's
but
my
you
only
don't
position.
know
You
that
keep
because-
jumping to my argument being, I think social
Let's
workers
keep
would
talking,
elicit no
just keep
fear.
talking,
I've never said
okay?
that.
So if you're
I
somebody,
can repeat it again if you need it.
I don't need you to repeat it. You've done it.
So
3 times. If
just
you're
to make sure,
Respectful tension.
I'm not saying social workers can't be scary. Only that I think for mental health crises, cops would generally be considered scarier. So just keep that in mind. Give it a go.
It totally depends on the type of mental health crisis and the person you're talking about. So, for instance,
Sure.
if you're somebody that's already been like forcibly fucking not interned or condemned, committed, like in the state, like you're probably somebody that's going to see a cop as being less scary than a social worker. Like there are people that don't even seek help from mental health professionals because they are so fucking afraid of being committed to an institution. This is why Byron jumped out a fucking window and killed himself instead of trying to find more help, because he had one bad experience where he was committed to a mental institution and he never wanted to talk to anybody related
Cops
again.
can commit
It wouldn't
you.
surprise me. I know that they can, but I don't know if most people know that. It wouldn't surprise
Wait,
me if somebody
yes.
saw. You can laugh all you want, but I don't think that
Yeah,
most
cops are
people
the
see a
ones who
cop
bring
and
you
they're-
to the hospital for the detainment, the mental health detainment.
Okay,
They're
so
the ones who do
keep-
that.
I understand that cops definitely have the ability to do that, but if you're
I
talking
feel like
about
you're
it from the
making a lot of
perspective-
stuff up to justify a position you wouldn't
How many
actually
times are you
hold
gonna
if I
cut me
wasn't
off
here.
Because you realize your entire argument is so
Wait,
fucking
guys, there's
stupid.
something
Yeah,
we're
my-
totally
my
missing.
argument's
Reed,
falling
Keep
apart.
cutting me off,
Fine.
guys, if you want to, right? So I'm just saying that if a person is having a mental health crisis, the idea that they see a social worker show up and they're like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here on behalf of the state of California to check in on you," that can be an incredibly fucking terrifying experience as well.
Less
I
so
don't know
than
if I
a
would
cop
sit
on
here and try
average,
to
I'd be
figure
willing
out
to bet.
juggling the door. Well, who are they going to be more scared of when there are like 50 more reasons to have cops? It seems like it's better to just either always send a cop or at least a cop plus a social worker. But I don't think you're ever sending just a social worker because people are scared of cops. It doesn't make any sense.
Destiny, you haven't considered the fact that maybe people are just as scared or more scared of social workers than police officers.
Isn't that what I just said?
I'm just repeating Vaush's point now.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, no. I'm pretty sure that by any available data we have, most people fear or distrust cops more often than they do social workers, because social workers are like the most innocuous and non-threatening agents of the state you're probably going to have a direct interaction with in most cases. Cops also have a... Wait, hold on. So the idea that to a person undergoing a mental health crisis, a cop is a more welcome sight than a social worker is, to me, something I'd like to see borne out in data. If you
I don't
can
know
find
if we
it.
can find data on that, but I'm just going to tell you, okay, I understand
Can you
that-
find data on
I
people's fear of
can't find
social
you
workers
data on
versus
how many
cops?
people prefer a social, how many people in a mental health crisis prefer a social worker to show up than a cop. Here's what I will say.
What about
broadly
fear of
speaking.
either group?
Here's
Is
what
there
I say
data on how
broadly-
many people fear social
I can give you
workers?
all I can provide are my anecdotes, okay? Here's
Ah,
what I can say
okay.
broadly speaking, okay?
Mhm.
Because at least I have some.
Have you been?
Apparently
Have you
nobody
had
here has
cops
ever-
and social workers check up on you in
Yes,
a
I've had
mental welfare
CPS
check?
show up to my house before. I've had police officers show up to my house for domestic violence disputes. I've
No,
had
I
all
said
sorts
mental
of
health
things.
check. I did not say
A mental
interaction.
So
health check? I don't think I had
oftentimes
that. Give me
mental
a second.
health
Hold on, wait,
checks-
I just want to address one thing real quick, okay? People seem, I know that like when we talk about socialism and left-leaning government stuff online, we all have these really great views of social workers and the state. Okay,
This
to
isn't really a
lot of
left-leaning
people,
view. It's a
especially
pretty
people that
ubiquitous
have-
criticism.
It's absolutely not. When you are a person that has had negative run-ins with the state can be incredibly fucking terrifying to deal with.
You mean the
When you've
police?
got
Wait, what was the
child
negative
protective-
interaction they had?
Hold on. When you've got child
What
protective
negative
services-
interaction did they have with the state?
I have to finish a sentence, okay?
Is it
If
the
you've been
police?
somebody that's had run-ins,
It's the police,
it
isn't
could
it?
be the police, it could be social workers, it could be
It's
child
probably the
protective
police,
services,
I'm guessing.
it could be people related to tax collect. There are all sorts of agents of the state where you might have a really
CPS.
friendly, fuzzy view of them, but if somebody's had
CPS.
negative run-ins with the state, these can be the most terrifying people that you ever deal with in your life.
A lot of the
Yeah, I
times,
agree.
the mental health
There
check
are-
also involves sometimes, right, the neglect of family members or the aggression towards other people, right? Like every mental health case is going to be different, So.
yeah, any case of anything is going to be different. I think that while there isn't going to be specific data on the fear people have of cops versus social workers, I think it's reasonable to say, given the fact that we do know many Americans distrust the police, or at the very least are anxious around them, that's very common, that a mental health crisis is a time where those fears could be elevated, and you would be more likely to be amicable towards a guy in a polo shirt with like an ID badge than somebody in what cops wear, which is some combo of military and police gear.
I think the reason why
Additionally,
you
when
feel
people
is you
have,
don't understand what those social
you need
workers
to
represent.
interrupt less, okay?
Wait, dude, you
So
talk for like 20
the,
minutes of your talk. I just keep cutting you off. You cut me off 30 times.
You interrupted
don't
the panel, man.
understand
I'm just
what
compensating
those
for that.
social- you
No,
don't
no, no.
understand
It's
what
okay.
those
It's okay.
social
Let me
workers
let me
interrupt.
finish. It's fine. So
man.
most people's negative experiences with the state are going to be with cops, not social workers. So if you're talking about pre-existing biases against the state, I don't think there are people out there like, yeah, man, I had a bad run-up with the state. Those social workers fuck you up. It's usually cops.
CPS. CPS.
And keep in mind,
It can be your probation officer. Like the thing is, you just
And
don't
keep
know
in mind-
anybody that's had negative runs with the state because you don't.
And
You don't,
keep
you
in
don't
mind-
understand what that experience is like.
and keep in
Like,
mind,
so
we're-
you say you're talking so cluelessly.
we're
You're like, oh, the only
only
people that are
talking-
truly scared of the state are like poor black people that get murdered by cops. Like that's your only experience because on Twitter, that's the only connection you have to people
You
that
are
have runs with the
projecting
state.
very hard right
No,
now.
it's-
Would
I'm
you
not
like to argue with
projecting.
Twitter?
I'm going with exactly what you're saying.
Is Twitter
I'm
on
just
this
saying
panel?
For you to
Is
say,
he in the room with
who
you?
are you talking to right now? For you
Who are
to
you
come out
talking
and
to?
say,
Wait, who are
for
you
to come
talking
out and
to?
say
Where's
the
Twitter?
only negative interactions you truly have with the state, generally they're with police. There are tons of negative social interactions that you can have with the state that aren't police. Now, for wealthy
And
or middle-class
generally,
people,
it's the
generally
police.
it's not. It can be, but it could be
Generally,
others as
police.
well. If you're the type of person that has
Uh-oh.
mental
Look,
health
I don't-
crises,
I
you
don't
might
know
be
why-
a social worker.
I don't.
Right?
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't know why. It's very indicative to me that you don't have a point to make when I say it's probably the police, and your counter argument is it could be other things. That's what probably means, not
Because-
100%.
Because it's
Any
probably
question?
when we talk about the broader population, the most common social type like employee you're going to run into is going to be the police. But if you're somebody that has mental health issues, that might not be the most common type of person. It might be a social worker. It might be somebody representing the state that's about to fucking commit you somewhere because you're a threat to yourself. This is why some people don't even go to therapy because they're so scared that if they say something that sounds suicidal, they're going to get deferred or reported to social services.
But
and they're
they'd be
gonna
okay
like,
with
committed
cops more
Who is
than a
this?
social worker.
It's not about.
Uh-oh.
I would be more
Anyway.
okay with cops and social
Oh,
workers for reasons
whoops.
that aren't
Anyway,
related to.
this is so we don't really have anything to go off here but Destiny's intuition, in spite of the fact that data on anxiety around police is recorded and
You
there is no
have
such
no
data for social
data.
workers.
What are you talking about?
But wait,
Wait, why are you
there's,
pretending you're
there's-
making data-driven
wait,
arguments?
hold on. There's no data on whether or not people tend to feel uncomfortable around the police.
That's not what
my
we're
God, can
asking.
you just
There's
put it in
no
the chat
data.
That is what I just
Either
said
way,
very
there's no
specifically.
data. Hold on. There's no
So-
data on whether or not sending a police officer or a social worker to somebody having a mental health crisis is going to have a better outcome, or is going
I
to make
didn't
them
claim there
alleviate
was.
like some
You should
concern.
listen a little better. I specifically said we have data on whether people feel anxious around the police. And keep in
It's
mind, by the
people
way,
in general. I
we're
feel anxious around the police
focusing
in traffic. That's not the same thing as
very
my question.
tangentially on
So-
the mental welfare check issue, which was kind of a side issue to the broader point that I made. Police get called to a ton of stuff. We're hyperfixating right now on how fearful people would be of which type of. And I think I'm completely right on that mind, but there are also tons of things that cops do that they don't need to do. Cops agree on this. They agree they're overworked. They know that a lot of their work is paperwork and doing rote, bureaucratic stuff that could be done very well by anyone else who's literate or has basic interpersonal skills. And all I'm really asking, and this is all I've
Social
asked since
worker
the
do the
beginning, by the
paperwork.
way, is we should be open to the possibility that we should be more specialized with these roles, because we're never going to have data on any of these things until we're more accepting of social workers being sent out. Let's start with them doing stuff that we know has like a 0% chance of inciting violence, like noise complaints, or there was a robbery at my house. Can you come do some paperwork? Stuff like that. To my knowledge, these are not the types of things that lead to violence. We can start with that. Those two on their own, that would probably take away 10 to 15% of the time that cops spend on out there. And that would be, and social workers are much less expensive than cops. Let me tell you that, okay? For a
Not
number
if
of
you're
reasons.
talking about endowing them with all the liabilities and all the training. Like, yeah, they're
Not all
less
the
expensive
training.
than cops. They're less expensive than cops because they don't have the training to like break into places or assume the liability to do that or have to go and write and file police reports. Of course, they're cheaper. They have less.
All I've
responsibility.
said so far is two things, both of which require basic literacy and interpersonal skills. They could be done by pretty much anyone competent enough to be a social worker. And I also think there are benefits to doing that because, again, there's something inherently escalatory about cops in this country. We recognize that. They're trained that way, and We know how people tend to perceive police officers with the way they dress and act, that social workers don't really do. So maybe...
To be clear, the cops aren't supposed to be inherently escalatory. Cops are supposed to be inherently
I didn't say they were
de-escalating.
supposed to be.
Yeah, no, they just
Guys,
are,
if I can,
right?
When you,
if
when
I
you
can,
call
Is
a
this like a
police
whole
officer,
feel argument?
when you
If I-
when you call a police officer, the point of calling the police officer is to de-escalate a situation because it's heading in a direction that you don't want it to go. That's the
The point of calling
that's
a
the reason why you
police
call
officer can be a number of things. And also,
okay,
I
guys,
never said
I
they're
actually need
supposed
to
be
move on from
escalatory.
this topic because we this is like we
Well, you
have
brought
other
Destiny
topics.
on because he wanted to talk with me. I mean, this was kind of inevitable.
No, I came on because I hate hearing people give shitty takes about like what. social
Why were you
workers do,
hearing it?
Because I get linked political
Because
shit
you were,
on my
yeah,
stream.
because you were listening and you got fuming, didn't you? Well, you did a
I
great
didn't
job
get
debugging
fuming.
me.
I just get upset when people say stupid shit like a welfare.
If I
check is
checked
the
your
cops
clips, would I
banging
see
on
fuming?
How many times are you gonna keep
Oh my
interrupting
fucking
me
God.
while
I've
I'm
watched
screaming or
this
crying?
play out
Let's
so many
go.
times. It's just the beginning of every fucking gay porno. It's like, yeah,
Jesus
bro,
Christ.
like they walk
Yeah,
up to
chill.
each other and they're like, no, I'm gonna fuck you. No, I'm gonna fuck you. And then
Jesus.
it's like, it's literally it's like watching the beginning of a gay porn.
Yeah, when
All
I
right,
hear
Destiny, you had your
misinformation
shot in
online that's
Nashville.
incredibly
Not happening.
important, I usually like to come on and correct the
Is anyone else
misinformation.
really turned on?
You did a great job.
A welfare
can you-
check
can you
is when
guys
someone
feel
shoves
the
a monster
warmth
and
in
kicks
here?
down a door.
Ah,
I'm getting, whew.